Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrix. What's up, Jimmy?
Oh, Tyson, I've been reading a great book, which I will talk about in my hack of the week, but it's encouraging me to declutter my life. It's sort of along that Marie Kondo book, but it's a little bit better. I'll tell you all about that, but I've been cutting things back and I've been really enjoying it. So life is good.
That is what we call a tease, people. That's a tease. I like the tease. Very nicely done. So Jimmy, this morning have flown an airplane. I have taken my kids to school, and now I'm here having a coffee with you. So I've had a great morning. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Well, let me go ahead and introduce our guest. His name is Brian LaBovick. He's the CEO and founder of the LaBovick Law Group in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. They have 8 attorneys and 40 office staff. They have offices in 2 states, Florida and Massachusetts, and they've won millions and millions for their clients. Brian, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, guys. And I'm super jealous. I love flying in a plane, like those little small planes. So Tyson, that sounds like a great start to the morning to me.
Anytime you want to go flying, let me know. We'll go have some fun. So
I would love that. My wife has specifically prohibited me from going in those little planes, out of fear. But I think they're super fun.
My wife would be nuts because she's got the opposite approach. She's encouraging it. So
interesting.
Maybe your wife
have a big insurance policy, right?
Uh-huh.
That's right. My wife's right over there. She's actually just walked in, so she's hearing everything I'm saying. So she's brought me Starbucks, so I got to be careful.
Nice.
So Brian, tell us about your story. What's your journey? How'd you get to where you are now?
So my journey started in the law. So I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and I've got 2 other really, really good friends, and both of their parents were very forward thinking for them, pushing them into pre-professional stuff. One of them is a cardiologist. The other one is a Wharton educated lawyer, and now as adults. And I got the benefit of that because my parents came from more humble beginnings. My dad got into 2 years of college, and then when he wasn't making it at the Penn State football team, he decided to go and do other things. So, college was a nice thing, but not like crazy over the top thing. I ended up thinking I was going to be a doctor, and in high school, and I got a traffic ticket, and I defended the traffic ticket myself. And I went in. And in Ohio, there's a prosecuting attorney and there's a judge, and it's a formal proceeding. And I did a really good job defending myself, and I fell in love with it. And I crushed this officer on cross-exam. And when I got done with that, the judge said to me, I want you to come back to chambers with me. So I went back into the judge's chambers and sat with them. And she said, young man, I was, I think, a junior in high school. What are you going to do when you go to college? And I said, well, right now I'm in AP physiology, and I'm in AP chemistry, I'm in AP biology. I'm going to be a doctor. She goes, no, my friend, you're going to be a lawyer. What I just saw, like that natural capacity to cross-examine like that is super rare. And you need to use that talent and just go and do that. And from that moment forward, I just wanted to fight in court. Like I wrestled in high school. I tried to go to college and wrestle. I wasn't good enough to wrestle in D1 college, but I did join the boxing team, and I boxed. My nickname in college was Box. In fact, I just got a friend of mine who's in Palm Beach County and said, Box, I just saw your commercial on TV. That's so cool. So anyways, so I boxed in college. I'm a highly competitive person, and the thought of just being a modern day gladiator was turning me on. So I've loved it ever since.
All right, great. So tell us about starting your firm and how you've grown it to be a 2-office firm with all those employees and attorneys.
So quick story, I got out of the law school. I joined every competition that there was in law school. Luckily, Miami had a lot of teams. I graduated Order of the Barrister. Only 2 kids are picked to be that each law school class. So I was very committed to being a trial lawyer from day one. And then I got a job at the Justice Department in their honors graduate program. It's the only way to get into justice without 2 years of experience. And so I applied for that, and I fortunately made it. And I turned down a job, a couple of really great paying jobs to be a government lawyer. And so did my wife. She worked for Jenner, So between the 2 of us, we got a lot of trial experience when we were young. And then I decided that it was fun being a prosecutor, but it would be fun being a civil lawyer and actually making some money. And I got a job with a mass mill crazy mill firm, PI firm down in Hollywood, where the owner was literally phobic to go into court. And so it was just he and I and like 30 office staff, and I was the only one who could go into the courtroom. And so everything fell to me to just go to court, go to court, go to court, go to court. And it was a great job. It was a really wonderful job until I opened up on my own. And then I moved to Palm Beach County on a kind of a lucky break, and have had a great run of it, quite honestly. It's been a great thing for us.
So Brian, you have 68 employees, and that's, I mean, that's quite a bit. So at what point did you see growth? Has it been steady growth? Did you see, accelerated growth early? Did you see it late? I mean, tell us about your growth and how you got to 68 employees.
So I had, if you look at a lot of like business growth charts, and I came to my business degree the hardest way possible. I graduated with a master's in a bachelor's in philosophy, which got me exactly zero business acumen. I knew nothing about balance sheets. I knew nothing about, profit loss statements. I had no idea about how to run a business. And my concept of running a business was, if I made more money than I spent, then I was doing a good job running a business. And that's not necessarily true, but in the law, if you're doing well, money wipes away all sins. So when I started in a business where I made $60,000 gross the first year I started the firm. And the next year we made like $174,000, and I got a paralegal. And then the next year we made $350,000, and my wife joined me. And then the next year we made 500,000 or 500, like it was this very quick, exponential double on doubles for a couple of years. And then we kind of hit this plateau just under $1 million. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of small firms. One lawyer, two lawyers, they're like ranging between 500 and $1 million, $1.2 million, and they're stuck in that ceiling there. And I went to a seminar with a guy named Mark Powers at Atticus. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but he runs a lot of like business seminars for lawyers. And I read what's the name of the book? It's super wonderful, E-Myth. The E-Myth, right? So I read the E-Myth and I realized that I need business systems. So I started business systems like 2 years later, and then we got that next pop, right? So we went from 1 million to 5 million. So now I'm like 10 years into my own practice. It's like 2004 or 5, and things are kind of cruising. And then we hit another ceiling. And that ceiling was like the 5 million ceiling. And we were 25 to 30 employees. And we sat there until 2010, which, at that point, by 2010, my hubris in business acumen had caught up with me, where I thought everything I touched turned to gold. And I was super smart because I read the E-Myth, and so everything was going to be easy. And I knew everything about business, and I was super overextended. And I had bought a building. I had bought 2 houses on the water. I owned a house in another place. I had a house in the Keys. I had a house in, I had all this stuff that wasn't actually worth as much as I thought in the 2010 environment. But I owed a lot of money, a lot more than I had in value. So I came to grips with the fact that I needed to learn a lot about business to make my business run. And I went back to school, basically, of hard knocks by reading every possible business book that I could get my hands on, getting, HBR so that I'm, reading Harvard Business Review and getting those articles, and just trying to learn, learn about marketing, learn about management, learn about HR, and learn about finance. And it took me a couple of years, but I kind of came to a point where I was running a better business, but I still wasn't making headway. We were still like in this, one year we were doing great, $5.8 million. The next year we were doing crappy, $3.8 million. PI's kind of up and down as things go. And I needed to get to the next level. And I went back and I kind of did this entire deep dive therapy with my team, my leadership team. And we rebranded ourselves, we enculturated ourselves, and we got really deep into who our identity was. And this is like my big preaching point now: organizational health, this, Patrick Lencioni type stuff, and just deep diving into your brand, into your culture, into your personality, and finding out your why, and, like what really drives me. And we went all the way back to high school and college, and the things that I told you about right at the beginning, about the fact that I like to fight. I mean, I like to fight, right? And that's been my thing. I like to fight, and I like to fight for people because I'm totally enchanted with this concept of being a knight of the round table, or, you know, being the Spider-Man character, being the Superman character. I want to save people. I want to help people. So we got back into that. And by getting there, all of a sudden, like, all the wheels started to click. It's almost magical, right? I wrote a vivid vision per Cameron Herald. I don't know if you've read that book, Vivid Vision by Cameron Herald. It's short, it's awesome. You do that, you get your team on board, you get your mission and your vision and your core values down on paper. You force people to behave within your core values. And it's like, you know, it's like, Michael, what's his name's book, Rocket Fuel, right? Those guys from Michigan, Michael Morse, right? Yeah, it's rocket fuel for your business. It's amazing what, you know, meetings will do if you run proper meetings and if you have the right brand and everybody buys in. And we just took off, and we went in 1.5 years during COVID from basically a $5 million firm to probably a $12 to $14 million firm this year, and going to 25 million, we perceive, within the next 2 years. It's just rocket fuel, guys. It's amazing.
Love it, Brian. There's lots of different ways that we could go with that. I'd like to ask about that time you spent diving into your culture. You said you went back to high school and pulled out the fact that you like to fight. How do you involve your team in that? How do you get them excited about that? How do you infuse that into the firm?
So it's a good question. And I think that everybody's firm is probably different, right? So you kind of have to figure out what the culture of your firm is. But anybody who is in my firm knows very quickly that I'm the firm. And that has been the culture of this firm, is that I have been the driving personality, the driving force, the driving system. You know, things go through me that probably shouldn't as a business owner. I needed to kind of, delegate to elevate, as they say. But when we first started this process, I was super involved in everything from trying all the cases and running them through to the smallest management and marketing decisions. And because of that, it was very easy for me to go back to me and say, okay, what drives this firm? I'm driving this firm. And that wasn't me saying it, that was my team. And I have a pretty big team. I mean, like, my leadership team is a director of 3 different divisions, so 3 different people in 3 different divisions, chief administrator, a chief technology officer, and these are highly compensated people, a controller, and a chief marketing officer. So I had a lot of people coming to me and saying, you're it, dude. Like, you're the visionary. It's your vision. It's your thought process. That concept in Traction, the book Traction that Gino Wickman wrote, fit my business model very quickly and very easily. And so we applied it, and they went and said, what's your vision? And I said, this is my vision. And once I gave that to people, and I tried to be as humble as possible, asking, is this really what people want? And are people buying into this? And everybody across the board, universally in my firm, bought in and said, that's what we wanted to hear from you. That's the vision we wanted. And by me just coming out and articulating it, people were like, we can buy into that. That's a really good vision. We like that thought process. Then we came up with a great mission statement to maximize justice by aggressively fighting for our clients' rights. We've worked on every word on that, and that fit me to a T, right? And almost to a fault, because I have been known to fight for too long on things that I think are either right or just, when I should probably, in a more practical world, give up.
So, Brian, as you've added these additional roles, these high-level people, I mean, did you do this all at one time? Did you do this over time? And then a follow-up to that question would be, which of those roles, whenever you gave it up, did it really accelerate that growth even more?
So that's a really good question. If you looked at our firm history, I recognized back in 2010, when things were getting hard, but we were still doing pretty well as a firm, as a 30-person firm, that I didn't know what I was doing in the business, right? So I ended up hiring a guy who had been a retired firm partner in New York to come in and be the COO of the company with me. And he came in and did an organizational chart. Like, I didn't even have a pyramid, like, no one knew who reported to who. We were all just a big family team. And that's what it was when we first started. You know, like, doesn't everybody start as just this family team when you're a solo and your paralegal secretary and her husband and you and your wife partner and your secretary's daughter all go to lunch, you know, like that's the type of thing that you do. And all of a sudden you got 25 employees and you may not even know, you know, the receptionist that was hired 2 weeks ago, and you don't have training systems, and you get a guy who organizes you, right? And that's what he came in and did. And he ended up hiring a secretary for himself, just basically like a secretary to organize himself. And he turned out to be not such a nice person, especially to some of the younger female staff. And so I fired him very quickly when I found out that he wasn't nice. So I ended up going to that secretary and saying, look, you know, I fired your boss and I need help because I don't know how long it's going to take to replace him. And she looked at me and said, I got to tell you, you don't need to replace him because he hasn't done anything since I've been here. Like, he doesn't do anything. He really has no duties. You know, he's just basically bossing people around. And I think that you and me can do this. I'll tell you what we're doing, tell you where he was going with things, and you can go and get them done very easily. And that person took over the HR that we were outsourcing to a PEO company. She took over the chief administrator's job. She took over my personal secretary's job. She took out like 4 positions, worked her tail off, and she's now still 10 years later our chief administrator and handles more work than any human being other than me in this firm. So I got lucky with a really strong second in command who was, you know, loyal to me and the firm and was amazing right from the get-go, like from, you know, 12 years back now. And then we just started adding pieces slowly. So we needed a technology piece, and she's really good at hiring. She brought a lot of really good systems to the hiring process and a very critical eye. My personality is like, we meet and I'm like, hey, you know, these guys are cool. You know, let me give Tyson a job. He's cool. You know, like that's my threshold of, you know, he flies a plane. I'm sure he'll be a good lawyer. Let's be friends. But she's not that way at all. So she's very much, you know, critical and is able to look at somebody and kind of judge whether they'll fit the job well. So we started adding great pieces to the job, and it all came together at COVID, because for 3 years, my team has been telling me that the thing that has been holding us back is that I'm still the main trial lawyer in the firm. And what I didn't realize is that there's a lot of things that I do that are non-trial or related to the business building and marketing and systems, and, you know, and when I go to trial, for the week or 2 before trial, I'm totally locked down. For the week or 2 of trial, I'm totally locked down. And for the week after trial, I'm totally burnt out. So I can't even think straight after a trial. I mean, I barely sleep during a trial. I'm totally invested in. So that means that, you know, a 1 or 2 week trial will take 8 weeks out of my job that I need to do well in. And I do that twice a year, 3 times a year, which, you know, 3 trials a year seems to be a pretty good, you know, batting average for a PI firm per lawyer. And that's pretty aggressive, but it takes a third of the year away from my working time. COVID killed it, right? So COVID kills 100% of the thing that was taking me away from my job. And I dive into this madness of what can I do to grow my practice? What else have I not done on my bucket list of things that I wanted to do in the practice? One of them was write a book, you know, so I got a book written, and I, you know, started to look up my marketing, and I ended up, just by luck, I was looking for a marketing assistant to help me with the marketing in the firm. And I had a person apply who is here on a work visa and was from Argentina. She had worked for a big multinational company as their marketing director, but now she's here in the United States, living in my neighborhood, basically looking for something to do. And so I hire her in as a marketing assistant to me, and she turns into the best marketing human being that you could ever imagine. Just such an ideal team player. She fits that model. Have you guys read that book, Ideal Team Player? There's a great book, Ideal Team Player. I suggest everybody listening to this podcast read that. If you ever need to judge your employees by some standard, that's the standard that you want to go back to in your head. There's 3 things that you want to judge people on, which is hungry, smart, and humble. Hungry being wanting to do their job well, smart being good with people, smart, and humble being just being a humble person. But yeah, ideal team player, Pat Lencioni is the author, Patrick Lencioni. So she fits that mold. Like when somebody just comes in and fits and is awesome and is super like intelligent and also a good teammate and also honest, and our marketing like turned around 1,000%. And she's now, instead of an assistant, she's now the marketing director of the department. And I think I have probably one of the best marketing directors in the country. And as soon as she learns in another year or two, because she's only been in the PI market for a year, the PI market, and knows all the players and knows all the systems, she's going to be the best. So I'm super blessed that I got lucky and found somebody that took our marketing to the next level.
You're listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Our guest today, Brian LaBovick. He's been talking about the growth of his firm. They've gotten pretty big and he's let go of some things. Brian, the question is, now that COVID is lessening, hopefully, with these variants and everything, but as we get out of COVID, whenever that is, are you going to go back to trying cases like you did before? How are you going to let go of that, which you as the boxer, you as the fighter, that was your whole persona? How are you going to transition, or are you going to transition?
That's another really good question. At a personal level for my firm, I'm having a little bit of a hard time giving that up, to be quite honest with you. I know that it's what I should do. I know that in some respects it's what I want to do, because have you guys ever tried cases? If you've ever tried a case, I think that litigators, we all go through this feeling of, why do I do this to myself? Like the week before trial, you're second guessing yourself and you're killing yourself. And you're like, wow, I'm so stressed, and I could so easily live so much better a life if I never tried another case in my life, right? And then you walk into the courtroom and you say your first words and you're like, oh, okay, I got this. Like, I got this. And then when you're done with it, especially if you win, you're like, I cannot wait to do this again. This was the best experience. It's like, I don't know if parachuting, because I haven't gone parachuting, is that same experience. Like you're on the plane flying, you're like, why the hell am I doing this to myself? And then you jump out, you're like, oh, this is excellent. Have you done that? Have either of you done that?
I have, and no, they're not the same. They're not the same.
Okay.
They're completely different. But I'm glad we're having this conversation. And Jim, I'm glad you asked this question, because Brian, I'm struggling with the same thing, right? I know in my brain I need to let the litigation go. I need to hire more and more trial lawyers. But I enjoy it. It's funny, the way you described it is exactly in my head how I was describing it. It was like, yeah, you're like, oh, you hate it, right? You hate the whole process until you step foot into that courtroom and you're like, get your suit, you're good to go. Like you got your armor on, and you're just ready to battle. It's such a great feeling. It's such a hard thing to give up. So, do you think you will?
I think so. So we are set for a bunch of trials. I don't know if other firms have found this. I'm assuming we all are feeling this, but as the courts have opened up, because they've been constipated with cases for 18 months, they got a lot of cases to get through, right, out of the system. So where I'm normally set for 3 trials in a year, that come up occasionally, like maybe you're set for 6 and 3 settle and 3 try or whatever. But I'm set for 9 trials between now and the end of December, like in a row. I got one on the 13th. I got one on the 20th. I got one on October 4. I got another one. They're all like backed up, which is very stressful. And I don't really have anybody in place that I can turn to right now in the firm that can do those on their own. So I hired one attorney who I think is going to grow into a really, really good trial lawyer, but I need to train him. So I'm going to have to try a couple cases with him. Like, what are they saying in the doctor world? It's like watch one, do one, teach one. So I need to at least have him watch one first, right? So I got to do that with him. And then I think I'll start to get out of it if he's half as good as I think he'll be. And then last night, the entire leadership team took out a possible new hire, and we took him out to dinner and we really interviewed him hard. And he's meeting with 2 senior members today for lunch. We brought him down from Kentucky. He's a trial lawyer. He's a trial lawyer, and he wants to move to Florida. And so I'm hoping that that all works out for us. And if that happens, and I have somebody that I know I can trust, I'm going to try to give it up.
I love it.
At least on anything but the most significant, fun, like let's go crush 8-figure cases.
I love it. You and I are going to stay in touch, because you and I are going to plan our exit plans on this, because there's got to be a good way of doing this. So we'll stay in touch.
I think I'm way older than you, Tyson. So I got an exit plan that's much sooner than yours.
That's true. I don't know. I'm trying to get out of this. My plan is generally to have basically like 3 or 5 cases that are bigger cases, and if we have to try those cases, we do. If not, we'll, all the smaller cases I'll let other people try. It's kind of the game plan. We've hired 3 new lawyers, and one of them we're calling a senior trial counsel. So I'm gonna take a stab at that, see if that works. But there's still a select few cases that I plan on trying. We'll see how it goes. You're right. Got to train up those lawyers. But anyways,
how many people are in your firm?
We see total is 22. We're at 22 people. And that's a mix of full-time virtual assistants and actual employees. So it's about split 50-50. So
that's something that I'm really investigating now, is that full-time virtual, but even foreign, employees to do some of the rote tasks. I hate the concept of foreign-born employees doing client communication, because I think the clients don't appreciate it. But I do think that there's a lot of smart people in the world, and I think that we can have them do a lot of, the job tasks that we're doing here pretty easily in this environment. And we've got such a significant technology investment. I mean, my firm, myself and my technology director and I have built 2 pieces of software that are pretty significant. One was a CRM called Intake Matters, and the other one is a medical billing software called ProWeb billing software. We also own a medical billing company.
oh, nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a subsidiary. So my practice has 4 divisions. One is the PI division, one is the SSD division, one is the work comp division, and the last one is a Florida-born division called PIP, which is personal injury protection. It's a insurance collection division for doctors and hospitals and ambulance companies, MRI companies. And it's a very significant part of the practice. But we also started a medical billing company, and we did the medical billing software for that because nobody in the market was solving the problem of how to maximize PIP and comp, right? But now I've sold that. So now another party, operates that company, but we still do the legal work for it. So that has been a great benefit to the 2 of us. So we're so invested in technology that I really believe we can make a strong accountability system and link work with foreign-born employees. So I'm going to try that out probably 4th quarter of this year, maybe.
Cool.
Maybe 1st quarter 22.
I love it. All right, we do need to wrap things up, Ryan. Before I do, I want to remind everyone to join us in the big Facebook group. There's a lot of great activity going on there. If you're interested in a little more high-level conversation, join us in the guild at maxlawguild.com. By the time you have listened to this podcast, we probably already sold out with tickets, but if not, go to maxlawcon.com and you can join us at maxlawcon 2021. Jimmy, what's your hack of the week?
Couple things. Number 1, I think you and Brian need to get back in the boxing ring and give up trial work and get your fix that way. Boxing. Number 2, Brian, we hired a year and a half ago a young lady who's a U.S. citizen who grew up in Argentina, and she's helping us with our marketing and our leads team. And she's helped us. I have a full-time paralegal now in Argentina, and we're starting to really grow that. We're going to bring in our next lead person from Argentina, and so it's exciting stuff. So it can work, and I'd love to, as you move into it, if you want to stay in touch and talk about it, I'd be happy to do that.
I would love to do that. I'm excited because I was looking at my schedule to try to fit in this MaxLawCon that you guys have coming up. It seems awesome. That's like October 12th and 13th, just going off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I do want to ask one question before we break. I know that we're probably out of time, but what was the book? You said I'm reading a good book at the beginning.
Yeah, it's coming. That's my hack of the week. So it's called. All right. It was so exciting. So I had my meeting with David Freeze, who will be our keynote speaker. He's a very successful estate planning lawyer from Pennsylvania, and he was telling me about this book that he's reading. It's called Subtract, and it's by a man named Leidy Klotz, Leidy Klotz, Klotz. I got it from Amazon, and I was getting on the plane to take my second son, Yusuf, to the University of Virginia. I open up the book, and this guy's a professor at the University of Virginia. It's a great book. I'm about halfway through. This is going to be a book that I actually finish. And when I'm done, Tyson, I'm going to send him an email with a CC to my son and say, hey, hi, Leidy, I want to get you on the podcast because your book is so great. And he sort of says, you know, that Marie Kondo tidying up book and the essentialism book and just sort of the cutting back is really good, but that we don't spend enough time trying to make our lives better by subtracting. We're always trying to add. And so just the act of subtracting and making that sort of part of our personal practice is a way to improve things. And I've really enjoyed it so far.
I love it. So I have, since we've been on this podcast, purchased 3 freaking books on my phone. So got a lot of work to do. So Brian, we actually ask our guests to give a tip or a hack of the week. It could be a podcast, it could be a book, it could be an article, it could be a piece of technology, whatever you recommend. So do you have a tip or a hack for us?
I do. And it's off the cuff, but I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. There is a TED Talk by Patrick Lencioni on ideal team player or the 5 dysfunctions of team, but ideal team player is the one that I think people should use. I think if you go and you watch that and you just even Google, you know, ideal team player, you will see a great format for judging employee performance and employee capacity to be a good team player for your teams. And you can also then articulate and diagnose where they're failing you, right? So it becomes very clear how people will fail you when you put them into these 3 contexts of hungry, smart, and humble. And it's an amazing thought process. So I've loved it. It's allowed me to create really good behavior from people that were almost there. So there's a lot of people that are almost there. Like I'm not humble. Believe me, humble is not my strong suit. But I try really hard to recognize that I know that that's not natural to me. And if I intellectualize that, I can overcome my lack of humility and try to be more humble as a human being. I'm pretty smart, which means I'm good with people, and I'm very hungry. I mean, I'm an older lawyer, and I'm still fighting hard to make my business grow and win cases. And I've just been ultra competitive my whole life, but humble is not my middle name for sure. So yeah, do that. Go watch that TED Talk. That's my hack.
I'm trying to pull it up now on my phone. So I will add that to my list of things I've got to do now. So for my tip of the week, it's a productivity tool that our guild member, Jay Ruane, has developed over the last 9 months. I actually posted about it in the big group. It's called Finalize. It's a really cool productivity tool because it really takes in that concept that Jason Selk teaches, and a lot of other people teach, where you pick your top number of things for the day. So I have top 3. Some people use 5, like John Fisher. You know, like I use my top 3 for the day, and I knock out those top 3. Well, it reminds you via text. So you get a text the night before. So last night I got a text. You enter your 3 things in for the day. He actually has he's at it where you can actually do 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. I usually just do 3 for the day, and then it reminds you throughout the day, like, hey, how are you doing in your tasks? It's a really cool thing. So if you're interested in it, he actually gave us a link for Max Law. It's maxlawaccountability.com. That's maxlawaccountability.com. It's a really cool feature. So if you need that little bit extra boost for your productivity and you're not writing down your top 3 or your top 5 for the day, I highly recommend it. Brian, thank you so much for coming on here. We got to stay in touch. I really appreciate this conversation. And it was
for sure. Yep, that was great.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting you guys in person someday soon.
Thanks, Brian. See you, buddy.
Take care.
Thanks, Brian.
Peace.
See you.